Hi everyone, Mr. Silbaugh here, and this is my take for Unit 10, Lesson 9. Alright everyone, we have reached the end. This is the last lesson for Unit 10, and this is the last lesson for the course overall, so congratulations on making it this far. This last lesson is going to be rather short, so let's go ahead and get started. The whole theme of this lesson is naming web page files. So one of the things, as you know, whenever you develop a web page or a website, you're going to name your files. Remember, the .html or the .htm is your file, okay? When you do this, you may need to restrict or completely change the name of your page, right? You want to make it short and sweet so you know it's easy to find and you know exactly what it's talking about. You don't want rather long, complicated names, especially as you start developing your page further. You want to make sure that you can find these pages quickly and easily. Plus, you know, if you're typing them, you want to be able to, you know, not have to type so long or make any mistakes. You should consider naming your HTML pages to correspond to their content. I've discussed this with you guys before. Like if it's an About Us page, then it should be aboutus.html. Okay, don't make it anything more complicated than what it needs to be. Remember, you can give your page files any name that you want, but you want to make sure you check and see if they're .htm or .html. This is important because you need to ask your service provider whatever they prefer. Usually it's .html, but sometimes it's .htm. Just check. I mean, they do the same thing, but you need to check and make sure that whatever your service provider for the server is going to say, make sure you check with them. Also, active server pages require .asp and Java server pages require .jsp. Those two file types we don't talk about in this course because they're advanced technologies in web design, but if you would continue on, you would learn more about those. So default files and the server, your pages are going to end up on a server. That's the goal. It's an HTTP server. The HTTP server looks for a default page, which is usually a specially named file. If you know what that is for us, it's usually index.html, okay? But funny story, the server will present this page automatically each time a user enters the minimum amount of information required to connect to the site. Okay, the reason why it's a funny story, the index.html, you're going to find out that it's not the only default page that can occur. We'll talk about that on the next slide. But one of the things that the text mentions that, you know, rather than having to enter the page as www.sitename.com/index.html, which would still work, it automatically knows because that index is classified as the home page. That's why when I stress to you when you're naming your page files, always keep the index, okay? It may seem weird, but that's your home page, okay? And that's the reason why it's your home page, because that is the index of HTML. That's what the server is going to look for, and whenever you type in the site name, it's going to redirect directly to that. So keep that in mind. You always have to do index.html or whatever your server may want or need, okay? The server gets rid of the index.html, doesn't show you it, but it knows that's where you're going. Default document names vary from server to server. There's more than just .html. You saw two of them, .asp, .jsp. There's even more than that. You can change the name of the default document, but know that every web server is pre-configured to default to a default document name. Okay, what that's essentially saying is there's more than just index.html out there, so keep that in mind, because if you type the wrong thing, you're going to get an error message, and we'll talk about that on the next slide. The text lists several common page file names. I didn't include them here because it's not really necessarily important right now, but if you're curious about those, you can go look those up. You'll need to check with the web server, the site administrator, or internet service provider to check that your default file name functions properly. If in doubt, contact those people to make sure that you are including the correct default page name, because otherwise it won't load, okay? So if you're curious about that, you can always ask, but in general, it's index.html or index.htm, but you want to make sure you ask. And then there's ways of testing that too. So what I've been hinting at is that if you do the wrong default page name, you're going to get the HTTP 404, my favorite error, the file not found error, okay? A 404 error means that you've requested a file that does not exist on that web server, okay? This indicates that the server is functioning. You still have internet access. The server is still working. The server's not down. But the specific file you've requested can't be located because the file name may have been renamed, removed, along those lines. This is also going to occur if you request a site's default document by the wrong name. So instead of index.html, you do index.jsp or whatever. If that doesn't exist, it's going to give you a 404 error. And this is a great way to test. So if you do an index.html and you test your page on the web server and it doesn't pop up, you have the wrong default document. Okay, good way to test and find out. Many browsers will automatically generate a page when a user requests a non-existent page. Like the text mentions, if you do like www.google.com/goose .html, it's not going to work, okay, because that page doesn't exist. So keep that in mind. You would a 404 error if the page doesn't exist or it's been deleted. So that's one of the reasons why you want to also make sure your links on your web pages are consistently updated, because sometimes servers will delete, sometimes users or servers will delete different documents, and there's nothing more embarrassing than, you know, losing something that you thought you could link to. All right, we're at the end. Stay tuned. Make sure you start studying for your Unit 10 exam.